at Charlie's request. Let's see. So I've known Una a long time, and she's someone I respect and admire. And here's why. She's served on the Sebastopol City Council since 2014. Initially appointed to fill the term, her late husband, Michael Kai's term, and then ran for and won their seat on the council in November of 2014 and again in 2018. She's currently serving as the vice mayor. Most of her career was spent in technology firms. She was a principal in an accounting software development firm and a firm that developed flat panel technologies, among other things. She's also responsible for launching my checkered career in the tech sector, so personally grateful for that. Later in her career, she served as the executive director of the California Coastal Trail Association, also known as Coast Walk. She was also chief financial officer for KRCB for years, may still be, I'm not sure. She is currently co-director of the Sebastopol Center for the Arts and a freelance management and finance consultant to nonprofit organizations. A former aide to Sonoma County Supervisor Mike Riley, she learned the ins and outs of government in the county, and she's been active in Sebastopol and Sonoma County community fairs for many years and is a well-known environmental and progressive activist. She has become an expert in housing in and around Sebastopol. She was invited here to shed light on why is Sebastopol so white? We got a little clue last week from Nick that the jurist segregation that he detailed. And what will Sebastopol be like in 5 or 10 years from now if plans go well? So with that, please welcome Una Class. No.
Welcome, Una.
Thank you. Good morning. It's just so fun actually to go to Rotaries in a Zoom environment. You all are super tech savvy. I feel like I'm at a well-produced TV thing. I mean, you've got, special effects and people doing drum rolls and lots of video, and it's pretty exciting. It's a lot better than our city council meetings, which are also via Zoom, and they're pretty dull. You've got a lot more graphics. So thank you for having me here today. I just want to report to Terry Kelly, I'm keeping a really good eye on the installation of your solar.
Thank you. I may need some help.
Yeah, Terry's my next door neighbor, and I look at the installation of his solar on a daily basis. I'm very pleased to be here. I'm hoping this is a bi-directional conversation here. I'm going to tell you what the city's doing to make housing happen and to make housing somewhat more affordable. However, I'd also like to talk to you about kind of some of the things we've done in response to what's been going on over the past 6 months or so, and the Black Lives Matter movement and the call for diversity, et cetera, what we've been doing as a city, and just give you an update on what we're doing. But I don't have any magic solutions, and so I'm very interested in hearing what the public, what you all have to say about what you think we should be doing better or what we could do, because a lot of these problems kind of make me scratch my head. They're pretty difficult and intractable. So first of all, part of what governs our housing is, or what really governs our housing is the general plan. And the general plan regulates land use and sets goals for the city on housing. So I think one thing we need to think about is there's two issues here. Like, okay, we have housing, and then we have why are we so darn white? And this is actually something I said at the council meeting last night. We can't totally get into this thing of like everybody that's not white is poor. So like one of the people that we had speaking at the council meeting last night, we were talking a bit about diversity, and the person speaking is Latinx. He's a Latino guy, and he he came from he grew up in Southern California in a Mexican American family, but he also has a BA from Yale and a JD from Stanford. So he's adding to our diversity. So we have to like not get stuck in this thing of there's two kinds of diversity. I mean, there's diversity in income, and then there's ethnic diversity. So we have to like not just get in this mindset of like, what does diversity mean? Is it, is diversity only ethnic? But how are we having all levels of economic diversity in our society and in our little town? So I just want to make that comment because people keep talking about diversity, and sometimes it gets talked about as though diversity equals poor people. And there are lots of people who are not white, who are not white and who are not poor. So what we really are trying to do is create housing opportunities at an affordable price, and housing opportunities at a wide range of prices. But the other thing that our general plan has tried to do is to create those opportunities, but also recognize that the bulk of opportunities for like mass housing opportunities are going to be located on a transportation corridor, i.e. on the 101 corridor. We can't, somebody was just asking that question about how consolidation of the high schools might affect traffic. And, if there's one thing I can tell you, if you do a survey of people in Sebastopol, okay, this is the first time it's ever changed. Since March, this is the first time it's ever changed. But before March, the #1 problem is always traffic. And so there's always resistance to additional housing and change because of traffic. So I think, and some of our traffic is caused by all of that housing that's out there in West County. There's, what some of us would call it urban sprawl, but all of those 2-acre plots that are, or the smaller plots that are out there between Sebastopol and the coast, and that creates a lot of traffic that goes through Sebastopol. And I know a lot of you live out there, and that's great, but we also have to remember that it all funnels through Sebastopol, and that's part of what's causing our traffic problem. But in any case, what can we do as a town, knowing we can't do something as big as what Rohnert Park does or as big as what Windsor does, but what can we do to make housing opportunities in Sebastopol? So we went through a process of rewriting our general plan about 3 years ago. It started about 3 years ago and then was adopted about 2 years ago. It was a year-long process. And then after that process, we took the general plan policies and then codified it in our ordinances, et cetera. This is pretty boring stuff, but actually it results in housing. So one of the chief strategies that we have for creating more housing in Sebastopol was to greatly loosen the rules on what we call, or what planners call ADUs, which stands for accessory dwelling unit, because planners always have to come up with words that sound really cryptic. When everybody used to call it a granny unit, now we have ADUs. So we have accessory dwelling units. And accessory dwelling units can either be a secondary, smaller granny unit on your property, or they can be turning part of your house into an ADU, into a secondary unit. So you're turning your big house into kind of a quasi duplex. So the ones where you're turning your own house into a quasi duplex is called a junior ADU, a junior accessory dwelling unit. Very catchy. And what we are trying to do with our general plan is encourage people like me who live in some great big old house, and I'm an empty nester and I'm also a widow. Hi, Jean. See Jean back there. I'm an empty nester and a widow, and I live in this great big house, and it's silly. And I have this 850 square feet downstairs that had a separate entrance. And if I wanted to, I could actually apply for a permit and turn it into a junior accessory dwelling unit. And that permit is actually just a couple of $1,000s. So what I'm telling you about is something that many of you could consider doing if you're within the city limits of Sebastopol. It's turning a portion of your home into an additional, like either 1-bedroom or studio unit that you can rent. So we're trying to encourage people to think about doing that, because a lot of us we're empty nesters, we're living in these great big houses, and how can we create more housing? The easiest and fastest way is to just to share some of that square footage as a rental with somebody. And so this is a quite inexpensive way to add to our housing stock, and you can do it on almost any house in Sebastopol. You have to pay a permit, you have to get an inspection, you're allowed to put in a refrigerator, a kitchenette or whatever, and put in an external entrance. There's no specific parking requirements or anything. So this is one of the ways that we are hoping to get additional housing in Sebastopol, is just by actually shrinking our own individual living space and sharing a little bit of it as a small rental unit. So we think this is a pretty good policy, because one of the things that is a problem, in my opinion, with low-income housing is that the incentives for doing low-income housing and the financing for low-income housing encourages one great big block of low-income housing, and then all those low-income people can live together. Well, that's like socially not a very good thing. We used to have, in the olden days, much more mixed neighborhoods where there would be little houses and bigger houses, etc. So this allows, for example, a single mom who has one kid to be living in a more upscale neighborhood rather than in a big block of low-income housing. And what does that do? That mixes up the kids. It mixes up the kids in the neighborhood. So you got kids from all different backgrounds and all different income levels getting to know each other. And, there's all kinds of social science that explains that, that kind of exposure helps kids as they get older. It helps them with their education, exposure to different kinds of social circumstances, etc. So we just think this idea of promoting ADUs is socially responsible and actually economically viable. So I would encourage anybody that is living in a house like mine to consider doing that. I actually haven't done it myself, but what I have done is I've got 2 roommates. And I have one roommate who lives downstairs, and I have another woman who lives upstairs. And my house is 3,200 square feet, so there's really plenty of room for all of us. That's ADUs are a major strategy. We're hoping to get that plus more infill. So we're really also have made it less expensive and easier for people to do lot splits. So we're encouraging infill construction as well. One of the issues, however, with everything is the cost of construction. So the person who actually, I have to say, knows more about housing in Sebastopol than me is the mayor, Patrick Slater, who is an architect. And so I called up Patrick to, when I was going to give this talk and said, so Patrick, what's the scoop on construction costs? So Patrick told me that if you build like a separate ADU, like a granite unit on your property, granite unit, the construction costs are about $300 a square foot. Well, that you end up really, your granny unit can be like, a couple $100,000, which is pretty darn expensive so these junior ADUs are pretty economically thrifty. The separate granny units are a little harder to achieve because then it's pretty hard to rent your granny unit for as much as, you're paying for the cost of building it. But that's our strategy in terms of getting additional infill housing. The other thing that we've done to try and encourage housing with the general plan update was we called for more density. So we shrank the required lot size and we allowed for actually people to go further up. So now you can get a 3-story building and you can even get a 4-story building in Sebastopol. And the 4-story has to be a little more like this, more of a tapered, so we don't end up in these tunnels of 4-story housing or 4-story buildings. But we are allowing more density and for people to go higher in the right areas. We're trying to encourage building in the downtown area. We would like to see some apartment buildings built there that are dense, multi-story, and have shopping underneath. We want more activity downtown. We would like to see people locating downtown to give our downtown more life. Although I have to say, right now we're all hiding out in our houses, so we would all be hiding out downtown, but there still wouldn't be a lot of activity going on until we get through this pandemic. We have cut the minimum lot size. It used to be 4,000 or 5,000 square feet. Now it's 4,000 square feet. And we allow for more density per square acre. So that's another thing that we have done. We've also identified large opportunity sites for bigger housing developments. And if you really want to look at that, I could have done a show and tell, but I thought you probably didn't want to look at maps, but we have identified like large parcels where there could be significant housing built. And one of those actually is being talked about now. It is it's the site that's a kind of on the north side of Bodega Highway. There's a great big parcel a little ways before you get to the top of the hill where the cemetery is, going out of town. And there is a proposal for a low income development there. It's for low and very low income people. It's subsidized Section 8 housing, and their proposal is for 85 units. So it's apartments and kind of condo rentals there, and it's being proposed by specifically a low-income housing developer. We have another, there's a 12-unit condo development going in that's kind of behind Frizell-Enos, well, at least I still call it Frizell-Enos anyway. That's going in, and those are kind of the two big things we've got going on right now. But frankly, with the pandemic and with how much it's costing to build things right now, there's not a lot going on because these larger opportunities are difficult when we're competing with people rebuilding houses in Santa Rosa because they burned down. We do try to give any developer that's interested the royal treatment, and we do have them meet with our planner and really try to encourage them to develop in our town. But basically it takes private money and private developers to make housing happen. We have taken these planning routes of these regulatory routes to try and open ourselves up to more housing, but it's really hard to get people to make the investment. And I think you had someone speaking about this last week, but part of the issue is that it's hard to develop lower housing that's from moderate to low and have it economically viable. And that's actually been the case for a really long time. And if you look at statistics on how much the federal government used to subsidize housing going all the way back to the 60s, the amount that HUD used to put into subsidized housing then and providing funding for subsidized housing to state and local government is something like 1/10 of what it was in the 1960s. That might have something to do with our housing crisis. And perhaps we will see some more federal stimulus money when we get through this pandemic that will go into opportunities to build housing. That's what I would hope to see, because it is developers really can't make enough money. It doesn't pencil out for them to build low-income housing without subsidy. But I know everybody thinks we're such a high-income town and that we don't build any housing. But when we did have redevelopment money, which used to build most of our low-income housing in Sebastopol, Sebastopol actually exceeded its quota for building low-income housing. We built more per capita than anybody else in Sonoma County, and in fact, one of the highest rates in the Bay Area in all 9 ABAG counties. And some of that is, well, there's Burbank Heights, which is senior low income. There's the Palm Drive, Palm Avenue Homes, I think it's called, that's right next to Palm Drive. There's about 60 units there. That's all Section 8 subsidized housing. There's another co-housing over near the Catholic Church that was also lower income. And then there's another habitat style development that's kind of near Fircrest that was also low income. So we actually have a very large amount of Section 8 subsidized housing in Sebastopol, which probably accounts for another interesting fact that hardly anybody knows. We have the second lowest average income of any of the 9 cities in Sonoma County. And that kind of defies what people think about Sebastopol, because our zip code actually is pretty high, but within the city limits, we actually have a lot of low income people, and a lot of them are low income seniors. They're people that have been my friends for years, and now I'm seeing them kind of suffer and have a hard time in their retirement because they really don't have much of a pension, et cetera. So that kind of sums up where we are with trying to create more housing. My big question is, frankly, I don't understand why we are so darn white. And I don't know why we don't have more, for example, Latino people applying to house themselves at places like Burbank Heights and places like Palm Avenue Homes. We're still very largely white, although in our schools, like Parkside is about 50% Latino. There's a really large Latino population of kids in our public schools. So I'm not quite sure how to answer that question. Why are we so darn white? I just performed a marriage, which turns out you can do when you're vice mayor. You get to be able to marry people. And I married my godson and his fiance last weekend. And she is actually of color. So I was feeling like, yay, another person who's not white moving to Sebastopol. But I think part of it is cultural, but part of it is we need to open up and be more welcoming and do outreach to try and get other communities as part of our community. And I'm really open to hearing ideas about how we can do that. I just want to, before I wrap up, I know I'm running long here. I want to just do a plug for something that we're doing at the Sebastopol Center for the Arts. And this is somewhat pertinent. It's not about housing, but it is about our building and support, in particular, supporting lower income parents who have kids who are doing distance learning. The Sebastopol Center for the Arts has started a program, and we're working on partnerships with Sebastopol Union and other school districts to create a distance learning site at the Sebastopol Center for the Arts. So I don't know how aware all of you are that children now do not go to school. They stay at home and they listen, and they have computers, and they do distance learning on their computers. Now, that all sounds fine if you have the kind of job where you can work from home, but a lot of particularly lower income parents can't have to continue to go to work. And so what do they do with their 7 or 8 year old that is learning at home on a computer, and both parents have to go to work? Or maybe there's only one parent. What happens to those kids? So what we've set up at the Sebastopol Center for the Arts is a distance learning location, because we have a 14,000 square foot building. We've created these pods where all the kids are 6 to 8 feet apart. We've hired certified teachers to be supervising, and we're creating 12 kid pods so that children can come to the art center and do their distance learning at the art center and be supervised with assistance from teachers. So we're doing that. I just wanted you to know about that.
That's fabulous. Thank you. I have one question. Talking about the ADUs in town, will the zoning requirements say that they cannot be used as vacation rentals?
Yes. Right now we have a moratorium on any more vacation rental permits, which I think is extremely critical. I think it makes no sense to have renters, normal renters, competing with tourists who will pay $200 a day to rent a little tiny unit. That's one of our biggest problems with losing housing stock.
Great, thank you. Anybody have any questions?
Yeah, if I understood you correctly, you said that Sebastopol ranked second in the county in terms of income. Where do we rate in terms of price of housing?
We're very high in price of housing.
The two statistics don't go very well together.
They don't go very well, although we actually, the statistics we have, the statistics we have are on housing sales, but not on rentals when you take into consideration the subsidized housing, because those statistics aren't really showing up, and we're hoping we get more of that information, I believe, from the census. And we're also trying to do a survey of that. The subsidized housing is kind of gets left out of the numbers.
Okay.
Do we have time for another question?
Well, okay, let me say this. Una, can you stay a little bit longer? And we need to kind of wrap up the meeting, but if anybody wants to ask you questions after we finish that, can you stick around for a little bit longer?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm a talker.
Fine, thank you. Then we will do that. I'll go back to sharing my screen, and we can wrap up the rest of the meeting. So, Michael Fells, who was number 20 today?
Well, that number 20, the lucky winner, is Jim Blum.
Whoa, Jim. I shall scratch this wonderful lottery ticket and see if you've won anything. We're batting,
lucky in lottery.
yeah, we're batting 0.
Go 20, go 20.
Go 20. So Chris Brocade
Not here.
has the joke of the day, but I haven't seen if Chris,
No, he's not here.
he's not here. Well, does anybody have a joke that they would like to contribute?
And
Okay.
No? Okay, then, Joe, happy trails.
okay, here we go. Happy trails to you until we meet again. Happy trails to you. Smile again.
Happy
Trails to you till we meet again.
So Lori, happy trails. Aloha.
Aloha. We'll see you someday.
Yep. So I'm going to stop sharing, and anybody who has questions,
Okay.
anybody who needs to leave.
Una, I have a question. Hi.
Hi, where are you?
What about the coast? You know, with all these vacation rentals and party houses and people getting run over and stabbed and they continue to, you know, not monitor the coast for vacation rentals.
County.
Yeah, out of my jurisdiction.
Oh,
So you're asking about vacation rentals on the coastline?
like everyone's limited, like Guerneville, Monterey, because whenever there's an escrow, if they want a vacation rental, they have to see if they can get a permit, if the house is zoned right. But there's nothing out here.
Actually, there is, because all of those, the vacation rentals, all of that is regulated by the county's general plan. It's all under the jurisdiction of the county of Sonoma. So if people are doing things differently out at the coast than they're doing out at the river, that's because they're getting away with it.
No, I know. They've always gotten away with it.
So the thing to do, like, call Linda.
Call Linda. Hey,
Call
Linda, what's
Linda.
going on with the coast vacation rentals? It's just, you know, obviously, you know, we've lived here forever. So, I mean, there's no empty houses anymore. They're either vacation rentals, but we are, at least my block we've gotten rid of a few of the vacation rentals for primary residents because people are escaping here. We have people just on my block from Paradise and from Fountain Grove whose homes have burned down. So yeah, it's becoming a refuge, which is good because it becomes community.
Yeah, and it's nice. Long-term rentals make you feel like you still have community. I think
Right.
that's
Well, they
really-
own them. They all own them. But so we're getting primary residents, but the vacation rentals are a problem.
I think, you know, in my opinion, I think they're a huge problem. And actually, I just got, you know, we did this moratorium when somebody came to us. I think it's probably been 2 years ago now. Probably perfectly nice person, but she had purchased a home outside of town, you know, a larger home. And then we had instituted a permit process for vacation rentals. And that she came and was wanting to purchase I think it was a 900 square foot house. And she was purchasing it for, I think it was a little over $600,000. Actually on the edge of the flood zone. And she came to get a permit for a vacation rental. And she said, yeah, she purchased it because she wanted a second house for when her relatives came to visit from Germany. And so she purchased a second house, but to afford the mortgage, she wanted to have it as an Airbnb. So there she's taking a 900 square foot house. First of all, the price is really inflated. Like, it's a tiny house, tiny 2-bedroom house on the edge of the flood zone, probably floods some of the time. And, and she's taking it out of the housing stock that's available to renters or even first-time buyers because she can rent it for $200 a night. And I just, you know, if government doesn't do something about that, we're not going to have any housing stock left. So after that venture, then we put a moratorium on any more permits. In the next year, we'll be considering a permanent ordinance. And in my opinion, we need to limit very stringently limit how many permits we allow. And I think that that probably needs to happen with the rest of the county. I mean, I think it was Chris Corsi said, we're losing more housing to vacation rentals than we are building. We're losing them faster than we can build them. And if we don't limit the vacation rentals, first of all our roads are going to go nuts with the traffic again, but we're not going to have any housing left for people who actually live here.
And the thing is, when you do shelter in place and you don't allow those vacation rentals to be rented, although a lot of them cheated through the whole thing, then they can't afford the mortgage. So then you have a bubble of homes going into foreclosure if they can't rent them at a certain point. So it's another bubble.
Yeah.
Michael
well,
Phelps.
Una,
Michael,
I have another question for you, Una. My name is Michael Fells, and your original point when you started to talk was that we may err on the side of assuming something about people of different races and backgrounds, that they're all poor. And to address that point, is the council or the Chamber of Commerce doing anything to reach out to the many, many people of means who are leaving San Francisco and the Bay Area to move out to more rural parts of Northern California, such as Sebastopol? And it seems to me that there's a real market there of a diversity of people, if we would make some efforts to, in fact, let them know that this is something that Sebastopol is interested in. And is in fact that true? Are we actually interested enough in doing this, in diversifying our population, that we would make an effort to reach out to mobile populations who may be interested in coming this way?
Well, we are seeing people move here from Silicon Valley and from San Francisco. I actually have some new neighbors that have moved in, that have left the Bay Area. And he's actually the husband is from Spain. And I think I'm not quite sure where the wife is from, but I think we are seeing people move in here that are fleeing the area, particularly in light of COVID. We are not doing anything specifically to invite diversity. I'm not sure how to do that. If you can tell me how to do it, I would really like to.
I'll get in touch with you.
Okay, please do, because I
will.
And call, let me tell you my cell. It's 292-0631. That's the one. My
292-0631.
631.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Because I want to know.
I like to ask about those live workspaces that, a few years ago were popular, were pushed here in Sebastopol, and there's 2 or 3 of them along Main Street, and it looks like nobody's living up above, and nobody's renting the workspace down below, or very few of them seem to be occupied. What's the status of those?
On Main Street, or are you talking about the ones by Peter Lowell's?
Well, no, that's Healdsburg Avenue, I think, but they're on the east side of Main Street. There's 2 of them. One, a newer one down almost by Fircrest.
Oh yeah,
And then a little farther, just north of that, there's one of the original ones on the east side of Main Street as well. I think there's a stained glass shop in one of the units there.
All right.
Oh yeah, I know what you're talking about. I think right now it's hard for me to say anything about what would be normal, because some of those, I think that one of the ones you're talking about had an exercise studio in it, and I don't know what's going on with that business. I think it's exercise studios are one of those high touch businesses that people may be doing remotely now. it's hard for me to say what is going on with businesses in town because we're in such a crisis. I mean, we have, you know, I have people say to me things all the time about what are we going to do about Main Street because we've got empty spaces, et cetera. Well, we also are the second highest average age of any town, any of the 9 cities. So that means we're all a bunch of old folks, and most of us are pretty cautious about COVID. I mean, I certainly am. I don't go anywhere. So that is causing less activity in our retail stores, et cetera. And so that's just exacerbated the Amazon effect. And we already were suffering from the Amazon effect. This is a problem, not just in Sebastopol. This is an economic problem. It's a problem in America, like the decline of Main Street. And it's because people are shopping more and more online, and particularly in light of COVID. So what we're seeing is less and less commercial space occupied. I am not quite sure how we fix all of that, but we are, I'm open to ideas. I mean, you may know Laura Hager, who was the editor at the Times and News, is working on this app called Townsy, which is to try and get people to, instead of going to Amazon, look at an app that connects to local businesses. But that's still, even that may get us more local sales. But for right now, a lot of businesses are in suspense because basically a lot of people don't want to go and shop in person.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Any more questions?
There was a development over by O'Reilly's that was approved a while back. And what's going on with that?
So that seems to be in suspense. I actually asked our director of planning what was going on with that. And she said, oh, that, you know, that they're still thinking about it. They bought the property, and, you know, we've given them a lot of feedback. I mean, personally, I guess they just aren't moving forward. And part of it is because of, you know, the economy is kind of in suspense right now. One of the things I really think that we need, and I would be hoping that they're considering, is a higher end age, what do they call it? Aging in place oriented condos or multi-family kinds of places. One of the things we don't have in town is a place for people like us to move. So if I were going to move out of my house, what senior living opportunities are there in Sebastopol? Hardly any. And there's a lot of people in town that could vacate the big houses we're in, so families would move in if we had some senior housing that was nice to move into. So I'm kind of, you know, I put my 2 cents in with that developer. Hey, this is one of the things we need, but I can't make them do what I think is a good idea.
Yeah, the biggest thing is having the main bedroom on the main level.
Absolutely.
Not having to do the stairs.
Right.
You know, and all these townhouses and stuff that are being built, and I see this in the town of Sonoma where my brother lives, they're all 2 stories.
Right.
The bedroom's upstairs. No,
Not helpful.
doesn't work.
Exactly. Yeah. And so, you know, I'd like to see, if we're going to have multi-story places, then we need a place with an elevator. We need, you know, something that's laid out differently than a condo, something where people have flats, as they say in the UK. They're all flat and you use an elevator.
Anybody else? Thank you, Una. Really appreciate your time, and thank you for staying late.
Oh, I thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Well, and I'm one of those people who lives in West County, and I do shop locally when they have the products that I'm looking for, but there are some things that I've tried to find and I end up having to order online.
Well, we appreciate you doing your part when you can, and it's not a crime to buy something somewhere else when you need to.
Well, and I also wanted to add that one of the things that our Rotary Club has done has bought gift cards, grocery gift cards that have been distributed through the interchurch pantry. And we bought them from the local grocery stores,
Thank you.
Furcrest, Pacific, and Andes. So
Like $20,000 worth,
oh,
Barbara?
we did 11,000.
11,000?
Yeah. So
Yeah, that's
Rounding up.
great. That's great. We need to support our local businesses, and they
absolutely.
need a lot of support right now.
And support our local cows, buy Strauss dairy products and Clover dairy products. So
Oh, I
Yes.
thought you were talking radio station.
families.
Mom's Apple Pie, they donate a lot of pies, Pacific Markets, they do,
Yes.
you know, these people support the community.
Absolutely. Well,
Well,
then,
another thing is CSAs, like community supported agriculture, like sign up with your local farm to get your veggies.
absolutely. Thank you, everybody. And thank you, Una. And we'll see you all next week. And Una, if you would like to come back, you're welcome anytime.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
You know,
Bye.
you could come every Wednesday. You don't even have to leave your house, Una.
I know that is the handy thing. Although, you know, I haven't really had my latte yet, so I'm not really fully charged. Believe it or not, with more caffeine, I can talk faster and longer. So
Uh-oh.
Okay, well,
thanks,
thank you
Amy,
all.
Kathy.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, everybody. Okay. Bye, Jean.